Silhouetted against the horizon, an almost alien landscape haunts the night sky. Even though the ancient sandstone seems solid, this is a landscape in motion. On a geologic timescale, the rocks are as fluid as water, as features are dissected grain by grain into blowing sand, eventually to be carried by currents and floodwaters down the Colorado River. In late summer, thunderstorms build on the horizon and assault the land like ocean waves striking rocky headlands. In this timeless battle, the sky is always the victor, and also the sculptor of one of Earth's least likely landforms. It is here, now, through an unlikely intersection of time and erosion, that conditions are just right to create the greatest concentration of natural arches on Earth. As with living things, each arch has a lifespan, each occupying just a narrow window in time. Unlikely as it seems in a desert setting, arches are shaped by water, as is everything that we see. The vast panorama of mesas, canyons, and distant mountains, and certainly the living landscape of plants and animals. In this land of scant precipitation and harsh sun, water's importance is magnified. Plants and animals are forced to adapt to a delicate dance between sun and shade. Here, every living thing finds a balance that best suits its needs. For thousands of years, humans met the desert's demands to find their place in nature's balancing act. Over 2,000 arches are found at Arches National Park. Even so, arches are a rarity in nature's architecture, and the very concept of the arch eluded the human mind throughout much of history. For humans, arches are the purposeful product of construction. In nature, arches are an erosional product of destruction. Yet both processes arrive at a similar result, and given enough time, all arches meet the same end: collapse. At Arches National Park, sandstone is the sculptural medium of arches. Like so much of North America's continental crust, sandstone is recycled. In the distant past, the red rocks of Entrada sandstone were blowing grains of sand in a prehistoric desert. Frozen in place and frozen in time, the steep slopes of buried dunes were trapped layer against layer in cross-bedded sandstone. Sandstone is a common rock in the broad uplifted area known as the Colorado Plateau. Each layer of rock reveals its own separate story of the past. 65 million years ago, forces deep within the earth began raising the Colorado Plateau. Though countered by unceasing erosion, the uplift continues to this day, resulting in plateau elevations between 4,000 and 7,000 feet. At Arches, the story is seen in rocks laid down beginning around 300 million years ago. For geologists and park rangers such as Karen Henker, one of the most fascinating geologic stories remains largely unseen by park visitors.
A key layer in the Arches story isn't visible because it's buried under our feet. An ancient sea once flooded this place, got trapped, and evaporated. And then flooded, trapped, and evaporated, over and over, building up layers of salt. A mountain range eroded and buried the salt. And a sand dune desert blew through and buried that, building up material thousands of feet thick that pushed and squeezed the salt, making it move. And the salt traveled underground, westward, until it hit a fault line, where it was trapped, forced to bulge up, cracking the rocks above it.
Salt Valley at Arches is the hollowed remnant of a gigantic salt dome. The pressure of sediments accumulating above the salt layers forced the salt to flow, oozing into a bulging dome. Rocks can bend under pressure to a point, the breaking point. At Arches, the normally horizontal strata of the Colorado Plateau warped and cracked, bowed upwards, and then broke apart. Beginning around 2 million years ago, water percolating through overlying rocks dissolved part of the salt. Surface rocks nearer the center collapsed into the dome. The salt dome fractured rocks, creating long, linear, parallel cracks. Gnawed by erosion, the cracks enlarged to reveal separate standing fins of sandstone. In this strange landscape, rocks defy gravity, at least for a while. Like humans, arches have a lifespan. They are born by erosion, burrowing into weak spots in a fin of rock. Small at first, the holes grow into mature, open arches. Reaching old age, some become thin and frail from the wear and tear of time. As with landscape arch and delicate arch, they may span great distances or soar high, but they are barely able to support their own weight and teeter close to the edge of their lifespan. Paralleling life, all arches meet an eventual end. Though many reach the frailty of old age, others may fall unexpectedly before their time, such as the collapse of Wall Arch in 2008. Perhaps Wall Arch's demise was inherited in its stone DNA. Defects such as underlying fractures or hidden internal weaknesses in the sandstone. At Arches, much of the weathering is silent and unseen. It takes place both above ground and underground, where the water table dissolves the bonds that cement sandstone. High overhead, in the heart of forming clouds, every drop of rainwater absorbs a bit of carbon dioxide while condensing from water vapor and falling as rain. The slightly acidic carbonic acid slowly attacks all rocks with chemical erosion. Sometimes, sandstone is broken down by the mechanical action of water freezing and thawing, dislodging the bonds that cement grains of sandstone. In the ever-changing landscape at Arches, the phrase rock solid can have a very different meaning. Water, time, and gravity are the catalysts of change that help shape an arch, or mark its collapse. Or it could be a simple freeze and thaw in winter. No one can predict what the trigger might be. For geologists and those who know how to read the rocks, the ghosts of past arches haunt the park. Truncated curves on mesa edges and isolated spires are sometimes the telltale tombstones of bygone arches, now turned to rubble and sand. It is all part of the natural recycled life cycle of sandstone. Sandstone is the foundation for life at Arches National Park. The living landscape is defined and shaped by water and sun exposure. Arid and at times parched by summer sun, Arches is more than meets the eye, more than a desert. In the midst of the rippling heat, Slick rock watersheds, such as Courthouse Wash, funnel water to thirsty cottonwood trees. The trees also serve as nesting areas for birds such as hawks. Canyons, slick rock basins, and potholes pool runoff from intermittent storms and become desert oases, supporting rich environments that make life possible for larger animals, including desert bighorn sheep. For all but the largest, most mobile creatures, specialization is the key to survival in the desert. Life thrives where it can. For some plants, this means finding a narrow, restricted niche in the living landscape. Here, even the sand is alive. Darker, rumple-textured sands are actually complex living communities, biological soil crust. They take many years to establish, yet they are vulnerable to instant destruction with each misplaced footstep. Shaded alcoves on sandstone walls nurture seeps, springs, and enclaves of ferns and mosses in the heart of the desert. Silent red waves creep across the landscape. Grain by grain, sand dunes shift softly with prevailing winds, while harboring their own communities of specially adapted desert plants and animals. Higher elevations bring scant moisture from passing storms. With just enough rain and winter snowfall, cooler temperatures and less evaporation than the Colorado River lowlands, a sparse juniper scrub forest brings green to the desert. Much of the drama of desert life eludes human eyes. It takes place under the cover of darkness. Summer nights belong to scorpions, bats, coyotes, and snakes. In this sense, there are really two desert environments, night and day. Meltwater from winter snows seeps into sandy soils, followed by spring rains. When conditions are right, the landscape explodes with the vibrant colors of spring. Salt Valley turns orange with globe mallow. With anvil-topped thunderheads, cloudbursts, and the monsoon rains of late summer, the sky becomes an inseparable part of Arch's landscape. Parched stream beds brim with storm waters, only to recede hours later. In flash floods, canyons run red as they carry the desert with them toward the Colorado River. Cottonwoods and scrub oaks ease into fall colors, and then the bare trunks of winter. National parks do more than protect places. They allow the processes that create and shape both the geologic and the living landscapes to continue. At Arches National Park, weathering and other natural processes go on, largely unabated by human hands, free to destroy the arches of today and create the arches of tomorrow. The name Delicate Arch says it all. This is a fragile place where nothing is permanent, and we have to be careful to allow arches to follow its own course of change. This otherworld landscape is the result of an unusual crossroads in time, a place where the ancient work of deep geologic forces runs headlong into the forces of erosion today. The result is a red rock landscape unlike any other, a place where the uncommon is common. Chiseled by erosion and shaped by gravity, The arches are vibrant and ever-changing. Yet the very same processes that create arches destroy them. In geologic terms, today's landscape is as ephemeral as a passing summer rain. What we see in arches will never be repeated in precisely the same way as here and now in our window in time.